Welcome back, everybody, to episode 3 of the BroxtenDigital show. Once again, just like the first 2 episodes, I have been extremely excited, and I'm super excited for this episode as well. I have an awesome guest joining me today. The first 2 episodes were bangers, and I think we're just going to continue on the path of that. She's a huge search nerd, kind of like myself, works in the same industry as me, has actually helped me a ton of my career so far, has actually kind of served as a mentor, ladies and gentlemen, Alex Ryan.
Hey, so happy to be here.
Heck yeah, thank you for joining me today, Alex.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Just to kind of kick things off, just want to do like some brief intros. If you want to tell everybody a little bit more about yourself, kind of your experience, and just some cool things about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Alex Ryan. I'm an associate director of performance media, specializing in paid search, also app, at one of the largest advertising groups in the world. I lead strategy across multi-million dollar paid media investments, focusing on performance systems that drive real business growth, improving audience quality measurement and scalable efficiency. And outside of work, I'm also a new mom to a 1-year-old daughter, which has reshaped how I think about leadership, prioritization, and even sustainable success.
Listen up, everybody. That is going to be you soon. Life comes at you fast in this industry, and Alex has taken full advantage of everything that's came to her so far. As you can tell, with being a new mom, being an associate director, you have a ton on your plate. I do like to kind of start things off with just like a little icebreaker, or just kind of talk about something fun. And what I kind of wanted to lean on was just the fact that early in my career, right when I started, in advertising, you kind of came along as a mentor through a program we were able to meet, and you kind of helped me just navigate some early stages of my career and everything. One thing I've never got to ask you though, Alex, is first meeting, we hop on that call together. What was your first impression of me?
My first impression, man, I think that was kind of a while ago, was probably just that you were, I think at first I wasn't sure how excited you were or not about the mentorship program. So I was a little bit nervous, but I think first impression was maybe a little bit quiet in the first couple minutes. But then as soon as I got to know you, I thought that you were super engaging and ready to grow and ready to learn. And I was really excited to work with you. But I think maybe at first, just, oh, I think he's maybe a little quiet. But now getting to knowing you better, I know that you're actually extroverted enough to do a podcast.
Definitely, yeah. I will say when I signed up for the program originally, I was expecting like maybe a senior analyst or a manager to kind of be there. When I clicked your name on Teams and saw associate director, like I actually got very nervous, which kind of
Surprise.
goes into the root, yeah, for real, which kind of goes into the root of this show is like talking to associate directors, VPs when you're at this point in your career just isn't always easy. But surprisingly, there are a lot of them out there like you who are very willing to just kind of step in and be that mentor who's going to help somebody at this point in their career kind of understand everything and navigate those early stages where the decisions they're making in the early stages are going to definitely affect what's happening in the long term. And having that good mentor, I haven't experienced those later moments in my career, but I can already tell having those good mentors is pivotal to your career. Just kind of kick things off, what would you say that the real value that you found in mentorship is, from both the perspective of the mentor and maybe some mentees that you've helped out?
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's definitely benefits to both sides being a mentor. So there's benefits for me doing it and giving back, but also for someone like you or someone as a mentee. But from a mentor perspective, getting exposed to new ideas from someone who is new in their career and new to the industry. So new ideas, systems, and challenges that I might not experience in my day to day work. So, hearing from a mentee. Also, giving back, it lets me help shape the next generation, pass lessons, leave a professional impact. It's great for expanding networks. So, engaging with mentees actually opens doors for mentors as well, and even helps refine skills as a teacher and a coach. From a mentee's perspective, it's a really safe place to explore. You can ask questions, make mistakes, and brainstorm, particularly someone that you can lean into who's not your manager, but also getting targeted guidance and feedback, dedicated focus on development, so structured time, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, to kind of prioritize your own growth amid your own busy schedule. And then lastly, I'd say just confidence and career clarity, helping mentees navigate decisions, build confidence, and then help think through your professional goals. So really great experience. If you have something available through your work or on the side, definitely would encourage someone early in their career to sign up for a mentorship program.
I would definitely say the same and encourage anybody at that point to also take advantage of any mentorship they can get, as well as to anybody who might be listening that's at the same level as Alex or even higher. Be that mentor too. We all love being able to talk to you guys. It's such an awesome experience getting to sit down and have some conversations with people who are sitting in those positions that you dream of every day. One thing that you kind of touched on though there was just the fact that it's somebody, your mentor is somebody that you can go to that's not your manager. They don't have that direct line of sight into your day to day. They aren't the ones overlooking what you're doing every day. Where do you think in that dynamic have you kind of been able to provide value and, kind of go past that direct report and manager relationship and really help somebody kind of flourish in their career?
Yeah, I think that in my experience mentoring quite a few people now, a lot of those professionals were nervous about how to approach conversations or challenges with their manager, whether it has to do with a promotion or a difficult conversation. So it's nice to have that other person to kind of talk to that isn't responsible for kind of day to day, right? Whether that's kind of looking over your shoulder with a work example or a client email or even just approaching a conversation. It's good to have another person who's just not so much in your day to day and having that kind of trust that, hey, this person's here for me on my side.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there. So far in my experience, at least, the mentors in my life have really been those people you go to when it's like, I don't know if I really feel comfortable asking my manager this or maybe going up even higher in command. Those kind of situations can be extremely like nerve-wracking and kind of hard to navigate as a young professional. So having those mentors to kind of go to and just be able to be honest and straight up with is a game changer. I know something that I kind of came to you with early in my career had to do with search. I was really curious about how to innovate and really delve into the world of search, paid search, even some SEO stuff we've talked about. Really kind of wanted to get into just your search experience, maybe kind of where you find your passion there, but just kind of dive in on how search has made such an awesome career for you.
Yeah, as you said in the beginning, I'm definitely a search nerd, but a lot of people young in their career might be interested in social media or TV ad verticals, which are definitely huge. Not saying they're not, but maybe something that feels a little bit more niche, but is not, is search. And for me, what I love about search, but was also really challenging, is extremely performance focused. There's a lot of pressure to deliver measurable results, which keeps you constantly thinking about optimization and strategy. A big part of the work as well is client management, especially when you're working with media that's at the very bottom of the funnel. So managing expectations, not just executing campaigns, but also educating clients on how search and analytics drive their business. I've also had the opportunity to grow in the app space, which falls within search, but it adds another layer of complexity. Apps come with unique MarTech challenges, multiple stakeholders, definitely cross-functional teams, and it's really taught me how to balance data-driven decision making with collaboration and strategy. I think that combination of technical rigor, client-facing education, and cross-team coordination is how I've been able to make a name for myself in the sector.
That is so cool. Yeah, clearly, just based off of what you were just able to kind of say on just on the paid search piece in general, there shows that you've obviously very well educated yourself and have a ton of experience in the industry. So, kind of what you mentioned beforehand was just that search might not be the most mainstream thing, but it still does account for a ton of brands like primary media presence. A lot of people don't maybe realize that, and search kind of gets undermined a little bit. Where do you think opportunities lie in those media outlets that maybe aren't as mainstream? And how are you kind of able to take that and take advantage of it?
Yeah, I think that definitely when you're working in something that is a lot more technical and less flashy than something like TV or social, there's definitely an opportunity to make your own way through the vertical and being able to make your own decisions, make your own opportunities. There's a lot of room for creative ideas, even with AI and a lot of things becoming automated. I think that search is a really great opportunity to lean into creative, but also messaging that resonates with your audience more so even than some of the other channels, just because it's demand based as well. So it's someone that is actively raising their hand and asking to buy something or learn about something. So it's definitely a different approach. Takes a different kind of strategy than some of the other channels. So definitely a lot of opportunity to grow and make an impact in paid search.
Yeah, that's definitely kind of been my experience too, is that, in those sectors of advertising where there might not be as many eyes or as much attention, there still is a ton of opportunity to kind of innovate, be somebody who's really putting in that 110% effort where, a lot of people that are in, maybe this is something I've seen, I don't know if you'd agree with me, a lot of people that are in those sectors of advertising where they don't get as much mainstream attention and the eyes aren't always on them, you can kind of see maybe a little bit of lackadaisical effort and people just kind of falling into the rhythm of things rather than, somebody who always has live spots going on national television on prime time. That's very intense. They know their name is on the line every time one of those spots air. Where a search team might kind of be able to just let things go under the radar, especially if maybe you don't have leadership who's really watching out on things like that. You being somebody who's in leadership in this sector of advertising, how have you kind of navigated that, and what has been your experience as far as young professionals and people coming into the industry on that issue, and maybe kind of how they can improve and be successful in those sectors of advertising?
Yeah, definitely. And if you're looking for an opportunity in paid search, definitely reach out to me. Lots of great opportunities that turn up all the time. But honestly, the biggest value and something that I would say to someone who's just starting in the industry, looking or interested in paid search or app advertising, is being able to turn data into action plans that gives you real insight into how your work impacts results. So I know data and spreadsheets can feel intimidating when you're just starting out. That was me too. But the key is to focus on what it actually represents. So customers, orders, revenue. It's not ab math, it's real business impact. And the best way to learn is by doing, so shadowing others, getting your hands on reports and practice. And don't underestimate how much time you can save by using spreadsheets smartly, especially when you're handling large data sets. But young marketers who really dig into the numbers, understand what they mean, and translate that into action plans are the ones who stand out. Math might have been your worst subject in school, but in media, it's not hard, it's tangible. And when you start to see how your analysis drives real results, it becomes exciting, not scary.
I love how you frame that it's not insanely intense, it's not rocket science, it's very tangible. You can see it, you can do it. Really anybody who puts that effort in can. And I'm so happy you brought up kind of the skill of turning data into action plans. That was a perfect segue kind of into the next thing I wanted to talk about. I also agree with you that that is one of the biggest skills you can kind of learn now as a young professional. And if you're able to come into the advertising industry and able to do that, you're definitely already a step ahead of the game. Everything you just kind of said there was awesome insight and really speaks, I'm sure, to everybody who's sitting in the same position of me as somebody who's really trying to figure that out and, get that early stage of their career set up, being able to do that. But as far as the students that listen, just kind of wanted to go a little bit deeper there. A lot of these students they're still very fresh to the industry. They haven't got to, sit in those offices, have talks with many professionals who are talking about their day-to-day life. What would you say those kind of people can do that are maybe sitting in their dorm or sitting in their apartment right now that have no experience? What can they do right now to kind of go out there and start to develop that skill right there?
I love this question. I would immediately say to someone who's in that situation to just go on your computer, create a website. That's the easiest way that you can get into advertising and marketing, especially with everything so digital right now. And they make really great tools now, even leveraging AI to be able to create something like a website really quickly. What's great about a website, and for one, there's very low barrier to entry, so you can create a website without any with any real investment, right? You can start for free. But once you have the website, the next question, the next challenge is how do I get people to my website? And that's the beautiful thing about marketing and advertising is really once you have your digital shop, you need to figure out how to get people in the door. So if you can get any kind of traffic to your website, whether that's through ads, whether that's through email, through social media, through referrals, any of that real world practice is directly applicable to definitely paid search, but paid marketing and even organic marketing overall. So I would say start a website, create a campaign, start an email newsletter, even if it's just a couple of your friends. If you feel comfortable after that, even just reaching out to your own small network. If you have a friend who has a shop, if you have, a parent who runs a business, talk to them, see how you can help, how you can create an ad, how you can create a website. Because even at a really small level, you can learn skills that are lost even at the enterprise level.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't agree with you more. Getting in and doing it is definitely the best way to kind of get those hard skills, especially whether it be, learning HTML, writing a blog post, just getting a website up and running. Actually doing it is definitely the best way to learn. I've preached that on my LinkedIn, and that's what I tell a ton of students whenever they ask me really, what's the best way I can get experience with none is that. Now, I did want to ask you, did you have any freelance clients like early in your career, maybe in college or even like right?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely the way that I made my entry was working exactly how I just said was creating my own website, working with people that I knew, doing freelance opportunities. And even if it's not paid, it can be volunteer. I'm definitely been very involved in kind of charity opportunities as well or nonprofit. So if you want to help your local shelter, if you want to help, you know, a friend who's trying to do their side gig, it's a really great way to get hands-on experience.
I've told quite a few students, reach out to every local nonprofit you can find, and I guarantee at least one of them will let you revamp their website or run their ads. And, right there is so much valuable experience. I think a lot of students and young professionals might not realize that when you're doing that freelance work, it might not seem like a ton. I know for me in college and at the very beginning, when I first graduated, I was still doing some. It didn't really feel like much, just helping out some people I knew with some digital marketing that they were totally foreign to. But what I found out kind of as I got into my career and started interviewing is that what that actually did was build the skill of being able to talk and communicate with clients, which I found out is actually a very high pressure, intense thing for a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah, it was surprising to me coming into the industry. A lot of people really struggle with that, just like read some just basic insights to a client. It can be a really nerve-wracking thing. For me, I kind of got that experience doing some freelance work. I'm still not doing it a ton in my role currently, just being that I'm starting out in my career, but I definitely feel comfortable and I'm excited for the opportunity to do so. Maybe from a little bit different perspective, what was kind of your experience jumping over that hurdle? And, now as an associate director, I'm sure you're talking to clients every day. How do you kind of get into that and just, come to those conversations with your full confidence?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Whether it's a large enterprise, global business and clients, or someone who's next door, right, running their pizza shop or their local shop, the same expectations and the same kind of skills apply in that you want to be prepared and you want to be prepared. You want to make sure that you're educating, you're giving resources, you're confident, you're coming with a recommendation, and you're quick to follow up, to engage with dialogue. So it's really a conversation that you have with someone, but you're coming from a place of authority. So even if, again, it's someone that someone, a friend or a family member, being able to say, hey, I use this data to review your website or your business, and I found this data point, I recommend doing this. So even just thinking about preparing, coming with a fact, sharing an understanding, and giving that recommendation is a really good framework for leading client communications at every level.
I love how you said coming as an authority there. I think that might be where a lot of students and young pros kind of get tripped up. When you are somebody who has a skill and you're helping somebody's literally paying you because of the skill you have, they want you to come with those insights and that confidence that, hey, I'm going to be able to help you out and provide this for you. Where I think it gets twisted a little bit. And a lot of people my age and younger kind of think, oh my God, like this person is in charge of me. They're expecting this out of me, and I don't know if I can provide it. But, just being innovative, showing that you're putting in the effort, at least in my experience, has really kind of, been what you need to do when you interact with clients. Would you agree there?
Yeah, for sure. And you don't always have to be right either. There's not always a right or a wrong. A lot of times there's starting somewhere, using data to lead you there, and then you can always pivot, right? You can always move into the next better thing. So don't be afraid of being wrong. Oh, I don't know about promising this. I don't know about recommending that. You can always have an initial recommendation based on facts and then pivot based on where you're going. So a lot of senior leadership that I've talked to in my experience is really looking for young marketers to be self-starters, to kind of initiate. So not always waiting, thinking too hard about it. You can always start and you can always make it better. So don't be afraid to start.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it any better. Definitely, just get in there and starting is the best way to do it. This is definitely just kind of off rip and something I thought of, but I definitely think it's something
Yeah.
that's very important, and it's totally gonna like change what we're talking about here as far as the topic. But surprisingly enough, you are the first female we've had on the show.
Hey.
Super cool. Yeah, it's so awesome. So just kind of got me thinking, obviously just that fact has made your experience so much different than mine, I'm sure. And I know there's a lot of marketing and advertising girlies out there in college, young pros really trying to get in and break into the industry too. What would you maybe say from a woman's perspective? How do you break in and really become that authority figure and get to those senior levels as a woman in advertising?
Yeah, and I think it's definitely come a really long way. And every kind of piece of business that I've been on has been a little bit different. I remember starting my career in what was, at least some of those accounts I was dealing with at the time, very male dominated. But then I'd work on another account that was kind of a whole female group. So I think there is a good balance overall, which is great. And it's gotten even better than it was even a decade or two ago in terms of diversity and bringing in different voices. So I think that's come a long way. But as a female, I'll say the most recent, challenge that I've had, or kind of something that maybe a male didn't, was even just me getting married and changing my name. So that was actually a big conversation I had with some of my mentors was, hey, I have my maiden name. I'm getting married. I want to start a family. I'm ready to have my married name. But what do I do with all my assets and my reputation with my previous name? And I can't say that I have a great answer because everyone does something differently. I've met quite a few women who said, oh, absolutely not. I won't change my maiden name. This is what the name I've had for years. This is what my reputation is based on. And there's others like me that says, hey, fresh start, why not? And so my maiden name is Medawar, but I was married a couple years ago and now I have my daughter and I have a totally different name. So what do I do with, a website that has my name, the domain? What do I do with all these other artifacts that I've built under a different name? So I think that's one unique challenge that doesn't have a solve yet, but just something that, my male counterpart might not have the same challenge, after so many years in terms of changing a name. So just one kind of funny thing that is different.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just sitting here in the position I'm in, I can't even imagine that. I've branded so much of my personal brand with my name, and changing that, halfway through my life would be insane to me.
Yep. And I did it.
Yeah. What were maybe just you have like maybe a couple tips on just how you were kind of able to navigate that and kind of, were you able to maybe let go of those things you put so much work into, or maybe, how are you able to repackage those and still find value in them even with, the title being different?
Yeah. Well, I'll say I'm still working on it. It's definitely not perfect, but I think that just kind of slowly, like keeping some parts of my maiden name so that one thing I noticed was I wanted people to be able to find me as well. So for a while, I kept my maiden name and then I changed to my married name, and I've kind of slowly made the transition. But I do also do an interchange between both. But I think that my decision is not the best decision for another female marketer, right? It's what that person wants to do. So definitely don't feel like you have to change your name or you have to keep your name. It's kind of one of those personal choices. And I think once you make the choice, then it's just something to run with. I think that I'm still the same person, so just under a different name. And I think definitely rebranding and redoing some of the assets and artifacts that I've built over time doesn't change all the great work. It just kind of funnels it into a different
I mean, that is so cool and is such a unique and interesting topic to talk about. Just something I feel probably doesn't get talked about enough, especially for female marketers. That usually happens, right at like the pinnacle of your career. Like I feel like that 30-year-old to pushing into your second part of your career, you're really getting to those senior levels, and you've built so much under that previous name that it can maybe just be like an insane shock to have to switch it. And that's so awesome that you were able to navigate that and also provide tips to a lot of students and young pros that's going to be their reality soon. Like I said earlier in the show, especially working in this industry, life comes at you so fast. It's just crazy how fast time kind of flies by. You even said earlier, it seems like so long ago we just met, but it really hasn't been that long. I feel like
yeah.
also at the same time, it's kind of crazy.
So
Um,
crazy. Goes
yeah, I
by
know
fast.
it does, but they say if you're having fun, time flies. So that
Yes.
must be a good thing, right?
Yes.
So after this part of the show, I kind of like to get into just, a rapid fire segment where we're able to just provide straight up insights to these students and young marketers who are watching, where they can kind of go and take them and just make actionable changes, maybe that week, that month, that day. Just able to jump in and kind of take what you're doing and turn it into success for themselves. So we'll just kind of
Do
get
it.
started with those two. Yeah, heck yeah. So the first one I had is just what would you say? I'm sure you've seen a decent amount of resumes at this point and done your fair share of interviews, as well as work with a decent amount of mentees, as you've kind of mentioned before. What would you say is an immediate red flag that pops up when you're putting yourself out there to help someone and somebody takes you up on it? What would you say is an immediate red flag that just kind of makes you go, I don't know if I'm going to really provide as much value as I can for them?
Really great question. An immediate red flag to me is when someone wants advice but doesn't really seem interested in actually acting on it. So, if they're open ideas but never follow through, it makes it hard to invest time as a mentor.
Yeah, I definitely can see how that's true. You're spending hard-earned time out of your day to provide them with insights, and if no action's getting taken on it, what is really the point there? So, everybody out there who's got a good mentor, listen to what they're saying, do what they're telling you to do. They're saying it for a reason. Moving into the next one, though, what would you say? A lot of people talk about hard skills and soft skills when you go into the corporate world or when you're graduating college. You got to develop both. So just kind of get started with hard skills. What would you say right now for a young pro or student looking to break into paid media and search? What's the number one hard skill they can add to their deck?
Yeah, great question. Number one hard skill would be conversion tracking and maybe even data analysis. So, not necessarily like scary math in terms of analysis, but seeing those clicks, leads, sales turn into real business results. If you can track conversions, pull data into spreadsheets, and turn it into action, you'll stand out really fast.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier of just being able to actually turn data into action. That at the end of the day, that's what your job is. You're basically an interpreter of here's the data and here's what's working and here's what's not. Make your recommendation based off that. You are the practitioner. That's what the client's expecting. I love how these are kind of looping back into what we talked about earlier in the show. It just goes to show that what Alex is saying here is so true, and it holds true in all facets of marketing and advertising. But kind of jumping into soft skills now, this is kind of the one where a lot of people struggle. I know that was a big focus for me my senior year and early in my career was how do I develop these soft skills? What are actual professionals trying to see out of me when I'm just interacting in my day-to-day life? So, what would you say, Alex, is the number one soft skill that somebody looking to break into advertising or marketing is to gain right now?
Yeah, love that question for soft skills. I would say number one soft skill would be strong communication and a sense of urgency. So be clear in your ideas, follow up quickly, and show you can take action. Clients and teams notice the difference immediately.
Definitely. One thing you just mentioned, the follow up is so huge, and I've found that just to be such a true piece in my career so far. The amount of times where I've sent just a second message, not even a third or fourth, and got a response and gained something out of the conversation I had has happened so many times. And if I wouldn't have followed up, I probably would have had zero conversation. So definitely listen to what she's saying there. That is just so true. And please follow up. Do not feel bad. You're not annoying. You are just showing that you care, in my opinion.
100%.
To jump, yeah, definitely. To jump into this last one though, so you said you've kind of had quite a few mentees. You went over a red flag, that kind of is what not to do as a mentee. And so to your future mentees, what would you say is the number one question that you wish mentees would ask you more often, and they don't just due to like embarrassment or lack of courage?
Yeah. Well, you can always feel safe to ask any question that you want when you're working with a mentor. But I think thinking about what I would wish mentees would ask more often would be maybe, can you give me honest feedback on my work? The trick, though, is to ask thoughtfully. So focus on work that really matters. So not every small task, but the kind of feedback for the big stuff really accelerates growth and shows that you're serious about improving.
Definitely. Now, I know this is rapid fire, but you just touched on something that I feel like we have to just go a little bit deeper on. And it's so relevant for people earlier in their career or looking to break in. You mentioned working on something that's important, not just staying busy, actually working on tasks that are, so to say, moving the needle. How have you kind of navigated that in your career, and how have you been able to distinguish opportunities that maybe are just something to keep you busy compared to something that's propelling you forward?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say I like to think about what gives the most impact. There's a rule or a saying that goes, 80% of the volume of something comes from 10% of your program or the effort. So it's an 80-10 rule. When I'm looking at ways to make an impact, whether that's with a freelance opportunity or it's with a client account, I'm looking at what is the opportunity that's going to make the really move the needle. So not just the 10% difference, but the 100% difference or the biggest change. So what's going to be the biggest impact? And again, that could be an account with a client. It can be how many hours in the day, whatever's going to make the biggest impact, whatever. And again, this is from your data. This is from your research. This is from your preparation. But even thinking for like hours of the day, thinking about what can I fill this next hour with that would be the biggest impact? Is it the thing that's due tomorrow? Is it the thing that's 6 months out? So I think focusing on what's near and what's most impactful.
That is a great way to frame it. One just quick follow up that I can't help but ask is early in your career, you're going to get flooded with those one off tasks and those, hey, I know this person's a good worker, so I'll just have them do this task I don't want to do, whether it be your manager, somebody a little bit higher than you that works on another team. That opportunity exists. So, and if you're a high achieving individual early in your career, you're going to get those tasks thrown at you. How would you say you can kind of stand up for yourself and, really just communicate effectively what you want to be doing more of, and maybe, if something doesn't fall into something you're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, really, really great question, and something that I still definitely deal with. I would say that a lot of my day to day work is exactly what you said, balancing many tasks that are coming from many different stakeholders, many different people, and you do have to kind of prioritize. And especially in paid media or marketing, you will be working with lots of different teams, and you're going to have to work with a lot of different people. So I would say that I always prioritize one, what the client needs, what the business needs first, and then almost also first, but what your direct manager is asking for. That should be the first message that you open, the first task that you go to is the one that your manager or client is asking you. And then the next would be what's most urgent. And then any other task from that, you should be able to push back in saying, what your bandwidth is. It's, don't always have to say no. You don't always have to say yes, but you can give trade-offs for what you are able to do if you do something else. Or so definitely with client communication, trade-offs is a big skill in your toolkit for sure. You can have this. The trade-off is that. So I think prioritizing the business, your direct manager early in your career, and then everything else is going to be against the bandwidth that you have. But if you start with the most important circle and what really matters day to day, then that should help guide and put you in the best position for success with all of the flooding of tasks and ad hoc different things that you're being asked of.
I think having that hierarchy of like prioritization of your tasks is just, it's an essential. You have to be able to do it and kind of decide, I like to kind of break things down into like a 4-piece quadrant: most urgent and
That's
most
great.
impact, less urgent, most impact, less urgent, low impact, and high impact, less urgent. You can kind of base what you're going to do off of that. And a good way to kind of just break things down, because when you have those million tasks coming through from all different angles, it can be kind of hard to just sit down, write down what you need to do, and say, hey, I'm gonna attack it in this with this strategy. And it's easier said than done, in my opinion. But that was some great advice on kind of how to break it down and make it a little bit more feasible and attainable. But that kind of wraps. I know we kind of strayed off from the rapid fire there a second, but you just brought up some great points that I felt
No,
like we
I
had to
love
kind of
it.
go in on. Yeah. But to kind of go in, I have a closer question that I always ask everybody. This show kind of founded with me scheduling one-on-ones with professionals while I was in college. I kind of found a passion that I really love interviewing people and talking with people who have done what I want to do. I've just found a ton of value in that, and love learning and love hearing the stories when I do those kind of interviews. And this closer question is one that I always close those calls out, and I gain so much value from. So I just kind of continue to ask it here. But if you could go back, Alex, to a time in your life where you're either just finishing out your college career, or you're just graduated, hungry to break into the industry, super motivated, what is the main thing that you would have done differently? And to go a little deeper, how would you have handled it instead? And what kind of impact would that have had now?
Yeah. I think that's a really important question to ask and something really great to think about. Early in my career, I probably second guessed myself more than I needed to. And building conviction sooner would have helped me speak up in rooms earlier, pitch ideas more confidently, and take ownership faster. So if I had to give advice, it'd be trust your instincts and don't second guess yourself.
I love that. And that is so true early in your career. It's just so easy to go, I don't know if I'm right. Like I'm the newest person here. Literally everybody else has seen more than me and done more than me. I definitely think this big idea I have might be wrong. But in my experience, at least, a lot of times when you come forward with that big idea, even if it's wrong or maybe needs a little bit of tweaking, you kind of get a lot of authority, and just a lot of people start looking your way when you start bringing those ideas to the table. Just to, I don't know, you keep answering these questions so good, I kind of got to poke a little bit further. What would you say was maybe a moment or an example you can give of, when you were actually able to kind of step in and assert yourself once you've kind of made that conviction and convinced yourself that, hey, I know what I'm talking about and I'm going to bring value to the table? Where do you jump at that opportunity?
Yeah, I think even exactly like you said, when you're starting with in a new situation, or I remember starting in accounts with a new client and kind of getting thrown right into it right away. And I remember feeling very nervous, like, how am I supposed to answer these questions? I started yesterday. How am I supposed to tell the client like what this data means? I, don't know what it means. I think that, digging in right away and giving time to understand before maybe changing things also made a difference. But as soon as I started listening to the voice I had or the instincts, I think that that is when I started to see the greatest results and the biggest impact in terms of feedback that I would get. For example, working on a certain client that I'm thinking of, where I was thrown into a really complex business and an account and with client expectations very quickly. Once I was able to dive in and get the data, and I was able to make recommendations that a couple weeks before I might have been really nervous about, but once I was prepared with data and understanding, even if I didn't master all the nuances or the acronyms or everything, I was able to really make a difference in client satisfaction scores by giving recommendation, listening to the client, and being able to trust my instincts when it came to the program and making a difference in the business.
Definitely, yeah. It just kind of sounds like it's a slippery slope in the best way, though. Once you kind of start doing it and see that value that you're able to provide, you just build on it and keep going. And the opportunities are kind of limitless, especially in this industry. So much room to improve, so much room to make more money for your clients or whoever you're doing marketing for. That's kind of the beauty of it. But Alex, I am so thankful that you were able to come on the show. Those were some awesome
Yeah.
insights. You provided so much value to this young audience and students trying to break into the industry. Everybody, Alex Ryan on LinkedIn, definitely shoot her a follow. Like she said earlier, lots of opportunities kind of come through her too. So definitely check her out if you're looking for opportunities in the performance media paid search world. Any other things you'd like to plug or talk about real quick as we end the show, Alex?
If I would just say, if you're serious about getting in the industry, be curious, ask better questions, and don't be afraid of the numbers. If you're willing to put in the work, reach out. I'm always open to connecting with people who are ready to grow. Thanks so much for having me, Broxton.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. It was an awesome episode once again. And thanks again, Alex. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.